All right. Welcome, welcome to this session with me. And it seems like you've already filled in a few different inputs on different skills that you think that your students can have in an AI-driven world. So I think that's a great kickoff for today's topic. I'm going to be steering my presentation from my phone. So if you see me looking down on my phone and bringing that up, it's not because I'm surfing social media. It's because I'm steering the presentation forward. So today we are going to talk about redefining deep learning in the AI era, which is a very fluffy title, and I hope to make it a bit more clear what we're going to talk about soon. But I'm going to start with saying that learning is hard. It takes a lot of effort and it takes a lot of energy. And I want to talk about today why my phone switched to the other slide, why deep learning is so important now and more important than ever. And I'm going to kick this off with a bit of a story. So when I was 17, I decided that it was a good idea for me to go from my small town in Sweden, where I'm born and raised, Uppsala, close to Stockholm, and move to the middle of France to go to a French high school. You may ask, great, but Julia, then you probably knew French, and I did not. So that was a bit of a shock, of course. It was on the spot that you see here on the map, in the middle of farmy Clermont-Ferrand, which is a small city in France. So considering that I couldn't speak the language, this became very much of a struggle because I could not do the things that are usually very automated for me, which is speaking. Speaking is something you do without really thinking most of the time, and something that comes automatic for you. But now I really had to redesign everything in my head. I had to translate from Swedish to French, sometimes from English to Swedish to French, and it just took a lot of energy and a lot of conscious effort. And I think that's an example of two different ways of thinking. One that is a bit more intuitive and automated, and another one that is more demanding and takes a bit more effort, but is very important for learning. And I want to spend a little bit of a time how those different ways of thinking affects our brains and how it impacts the way that we learn. So my name is Julia. I work as a faculty development and student engagement advisor at Mentimeter, a very long title. And what I do on a daily basis is working with universities across Europe to help them to become more engaging and interactive in their classrooms and to prepare to do that also as well. So to help them to kind of engage even more with their students. And I put a few learning outcomes on the screen, so things that I hope that you leave the session today with. And the first and foremost is for you to understand a bit more how AI is shaping student learning. This is a topic that I think you probably have already discussed a bit today and probably will do even more tomorrow. And then secondly, for you to be able to explain the importance of deep learning. I'm going to get into that soon. For you to get a bit more of an understanding of the need for engaging classrooms. And then finally, we're going to go into a few strategies that can support deep learning that I'm going to talk about here today. But of course, in this room, we have a lot of seniority and a lot of expertise. So I really want to tap into that. So how we are going to learn together in this session is we're going to live as we learn. We're going to talk about deep learning and we're going to engage in deep learning. So this session is going to be very interactive. You're going to be talking to the people next to you to discuss together. And then once you have done that, we're going to come back to the session and then we're going to summarize it in Mentimeter. So the tool that I'm presenting this in, so that you can see what everyone else in the room is thinking, and also for you to bring that with you once you leave this room and hopefully create some lasting memories. So when you see me putting up my hand like this, once you are in discussions, I would like for you to do the same. Stop talking to your peer and put up your hand and look at me, because that means that we are going to go back into the session and continue forward. So just a little bit on how we will do this session together. But let's get into the theory. So in his very famous book, Thinking Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman talks about two different modes of thinking. The first one being a bit more automated and fast and more effortless, so suitable for routine tasks and things that we know and do on a daily basis. And then we have the system 2, which is a bit more slow and deliberate and more methodical and very important when we try to learn. So digging a bit deeper into how these two systems activates in terms of learning. The system 1 is important for automated skills when you learn, while system 2 is very important for deeper learning, to make sure that learning really sticks. And once you have kind of battled that and gone into the harder part of learning, they get moved to the system 1. So basically, me learning to speak French, that was me activating system 2. Then when the year was ended, it had become almost system 1. It became more automated because I became fluent in French. So that's kind of how they relate to each other. And I hope no one hears French, because then you'll have to test me after this. Great. Then we'll see afterwards. Good. So far so good, I hope. System 1 is fast, effortless thinking, good for routine tasks and automation. And system 2 is more deliberate and essential when you learn things in depth. So then one may ask what happens when we get exposed to technologies that offers a lot of processing speed and a lot of convenience for us, such as self-driving cars or now AI, the hot topic of the day. So in these technologies, we may actually push our deeper thinking and our more more deeper critical thinking to technology. So we will rely more on our system 1 thinking and use technology for the system 2. So because AI can now really provide us with ready-made answers in a way that wasn't really possible before. So of course, students are no different to this. You probably know this even better than I do. They are going to use AI exactly as we do. So we're kind of not just dealing with a faster search engine. We're kind of having a system here that can give ready-made answers and outputs depending on what the student put in. So when AI does that, it may feel efficient and it may feel like we're learning, but it can create the illusion of learning. Because familiarity to a subject is not necessarily the same as an understanding, and being confident in a topic doesn't necessarily mean that you are competent in it. So it's important to differentiate those from each other. And without effort and energy, we risk to staying in a bit of more shallow learning overall. So superficial use of technology may lead to superficial learning. So what does that mean for classroom design? So I'd like you to look into this classroom. I think this is a very common situation that many of you have been in. I have personally been in one of these myself many times, where you have a lecture hall. So the lecturer comes down to the podium here. They have prepared a lot of slides because there's a lot of information that they want to give to the students and they want them to learn all of it. So they prepared slide by slide, hundreds of them, maybe not hundreds, but a lot. And they come down and they start to put up their presentation. Once they've gone through a few of them, they look up to the classroom and they see that some people in the front are kind of like nodding politely, but most of them are sitting on their phones or just too far back. You can't even see their faces, or they cannot even see their faces, so it's a bit more tricky. But they're not concerned. They're like, there's still a lot of things I need to go through, so they go through all of the presentations, and once they come to the end, they're like, now it's time to really talk this through. We need to discuss. I want to get questions from the people here and the students. So they turn up, they look around in the classroom and they ask, are there any questions, any reflections? And this is what they are met with. complete and utter silence. Not the most fun experience. And you've also lost the opportunity here to kind of engage with the students and engage with their system to thinking, the more critical thinking and the thing that really enables deep learning and for everything for them to stick. So, my word to you is that one-directional lectures will not cut it anymore. The classroom can play an even more central role in facilitating deep learning. Of course, it's always been important, but I'd like to argue that now it's even more important than ever. So, we're soon going to go into discussions, but I want to reiterate what deep learning is so that you have it on top of your mind when you go to talk to the person next to you. So deep learning is the process of actively engaging with complex ideas through reflection, struggle, and critical thinking, leading to lasting understanding and the ability to apply knowledge in new context. That was a lot. So, what I would like you to do now is to turn to the person next to you and discuss for 3 minutes how intentionally do you currently design for deep learning to happen in the classroom. And remember, when I put up my hand like this, I'd like you to come back, do the same, and come back to me. So, the floor is yours. We will get there at some point. right. Well done. Time is up. Now I would like you to bring back what you discussed into this question. How intentionally do you currently design for deep learning to happen in the classroom? And we will see what the group looks like. And I'm going to hide the responses so you don't get affected with each other. Exactly, you may have to scan the QR code again, but if you were already in, you should be able to just put up your... Yes, exactly. That would be very intentionally. And if anyone wants to ask any questions at any point, you can put it either to Mentimeter, so you have a little button that says open Q&A on your phone, or of course you can voice it out later when we get to the Q&A, whatever you prefer. Let's see if we can get all 28 to respond. I'm getting a few thumbs up and hearts. Lovely. Maybe it's you, Ostra, my colleague. All right, we have 21 that's responded. I'm gonna wait for a few more and then I'll show the answers. Can we get to 25? No. Let's go. All right, so it looks like we have a bit of a spread, but most of you do intentionally try to design for deep learning to happen in the classroom, which is really nice to see. That's great, great work. Nice. We do have some of you that are a bit lower here as well. So if I hover over here, I can see that 2 of you found yourself on the lower end and 3 somewhere in the middle. So very nice overview. Thank you so much for sharing. Hope the discussion was insightful. All right, here I have an image of the Gutenberg press, which, as most of you may know, were a technology that arrived to make books more widely available in the world. Before they were written by hand, so very time-consuming and very expensive, of course. But this one made books and the spreading of books much more widely done, so to say. And the reason I have this one up is because all through time, each information technology has prompted intellectuals alike and humans alike to question how it affects human cognition. So this is in no way a new conversation. This has happened all through time. And I think we can all agree that the spreading of books was something that really enhanced human knowledge spreading. The critics at the time thought that it would lead to shallow learning because now people could just skim through books. They didn't have a teacher that was sat by their side to really walk them through the materials and so forth. But I do think we would, most of us at least, agree that it has been very effective as a technology for humanity as a whole and for the spreading of knowledge. And now if you also go out and look into articles that talk about AI and whether it enhances or undermines learning, you will get multiple hits and results. So this is already a very hot topic and a very common one already now. So maybe it is the Gutenberg press of our time. Who knows? But discussing whether AI enhances or undermines learning is a bit pointless because it doesn't really matter, the technology itself doesn't depend on, or the learning doesn't depend on the technology itself, it's how we use the technology. That is the important part here. So AI is here to stay. I think that's probably what you will be hearing all through the sessions here now, but we should try and tap into it as much as possible. And students, when exiting your schools, expect capabilities and not only credentials. So having heaps of information in their head is not going to be enough for the modern business world. They expect to come out and be ready for whatever is facing them out there in the real business world. So they need to be set up for that. And I think I don't know if most of you were probably in the keynote this morning with Kevin Ellis that talked about a portfolio of experience, and creating those experiences in the classroom is going to be very important going forward. And I'd like to kind of tap into that and say that we need to look into how we can sharpen the students' human capabilities. That's also something that Kevin mentioned, that have it here, that AI will never trump human capabilities. So how can we really tap into what makes us human and sharpen those skills for the students, which could be critical thinking, reasoning, creativity, and also what Kevin mentioned too, the capability of learning. So learning in itself may not be as important as showcasing that you can learn. That's something that he talked about earlier today that I found to be very interesting. And ability to present was also one of them. So how can we really tap into having the students learn about these things that inherently makes us human and makes us stand out from AI? And I'd like to hear from you if you have noticed any changes in what students expect now compared to a few years ago. And this time I'm just going to use the Mentimeter, so feel free to put in your input here. Learning by doing, a lot of expectations, more activity during classes. Yes. Students want more case studies, simulations, ways for them to apply learning, less reading of articles. I'll remove this one so we can see the answers. Less attention, more practical tech application, more directive, focus on practical use. Very interesting. Tailored interactive classes. All right, we're getting a lot of inputs in, so I'm going to use the magic of AI and group these together so I can get an easier overview. So I'm just pressing space on my keyboard now, and AI will group this for me, so it's a bit easier for me to look at it here in the room. Let's see if the connection is going to make it. There we go. All right, so practical learning, attention span, assessment expectations, interactive classes, technology skills. Those seem to be the ones that have changed compared to a few years ago. Very nice. Thank you for sharing. All right, so let's get back to the classroom. All these things kind of brings us to a key insight. So if AI is handling more the surface level tasks, how can we design an experience in the classroom that is more tapping into those human skills that we talked about? Because AI can already deliver content today, so designing an experience in the classroom that is really interactive and engaging will be even more important than ever. So in the classroom, that's where we kind of challenge the students and challenge their reasoning, challenge their critical thinking, and create those experiences that can help them with those aspects. So the classroom can become even more of an anchoring point for deeper learning. That's where we challenge, where we reflect, where we discuss, and where we refine all of the things that they may have read outside, either through their own reading or through AI or however they have acquired those insights. So a focus on deep learning can, in one way, drive graduate employability. So if the students have more of those skills, as we saw also in the keynote, they will be more employable once they come out in the market, especially now where AI is really changing how the market is going to look like, and the employer and employee market in general. It can help with strengthening market differentiation because you have students that are ready when they come out. Protect degree credibility so that the degree really means even more. And of course, in that term, enhance the global rankings and alumni success. There's also something that was mentioned in the keynote, how much alumni plays a key role in the success for new students coming in. So, what's the difficulty? If this is something that we need to do, why can't we just do it? We already see that some of you do some of it, some of you do less of it. So I'd like you to turn to the person next to you and discuss for 3 minutes. Once again, what does your organization find the most challenging when designing learning environments that engage deep learning, or System 2? So once again, when you see my hand, you also stop talking and put up your hand, but you have 3 minutes to talk to your peer next to you now. All right, great. Let's get back to it. So, as before, I'd like you to summarize your discussion here in Mentimeter. Oh, you should be able to... There we go. If you go back to your browser, hopefully you still have it there. But if you lost it, then you can definitely scan the code again. Mm-hmm. it now. Hope everyone is signed in. Oh, no. Oh, maybe someone, I see someone scanning over there, so I'll allow it to be up. I like this one. All right, give it a few more seconds. Interesting. Really good insights. Let's use AI to summarize again. I think some are still typing, so I'll wait a few more seconds. All right. I'm going to summarize a bit differently this time. I'm going to make, well, a summary rather than grouping. And doing that, I just go to the left side of the screen here. I have this little light bulb here. And if I press this one, I can use AI to summarize all of the answers. So let's see if the connection makes it. All right. So overall, it seems like a lack of time is popular here. Resource constraints, resistant to change, inadequate learning spaces, and large class sizes. Really insightful. I definitely recognize a few of these. Now I think I pressed the wrong button. There we go. So when I work with all of these universities across Europe that I mentioned in the beginning, and when I work with advisory for these specific topics, these are the main things that I hear, and they seem to align quite closely with many what you were saying as well. So of course there can be a plethora of different reasons to why this is hard, but these are the ones that I encounter most commonly. First and foremost, lack of time. It was the one that was on the top when I did the summary as well. Well, educators have a lot on their plate, right? They're running from left to right, and sometimes they just don't have the time to design for deep learning because they're also conducting their research and so forth. And in that same area, educators sometimes, I mean, they both do their research. That's sometimes their main job, and then they also teach. So they are not always educated in pedagogy, and that's not the main part of their role. So sometimes they don't feel confident in enabling their students for deep learning. It's more if that's something that's your passion, then you can go out and do that. But sometimes they don't feel enabled to do it. And I also see quite sometimes that they lack the tools and resources, and that was also something that popped up, I believe, on the summary that I just did. So they don't have the right tools to support for deep learnings in general, or deep learning exactly. So you've already mentioned that you saw a few of these, and if you can choose in between them, which challenges do you see most often amongst educators in your organization? And this is a Mentimeter question again. And I'll bring up the QR code again. All right, seems to be a quite even spread actually. It seems to be an even spread. No specific trend towards any way, maybe slightly more to the lack of time, which makes sense with what you added at the beginning as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. So my call to you is to use technology to your advantage. So let it support your educators and whomever is supporting your educators, so educational technology or technologists or any areas in similarly. So I'm going to go through a few different examples on how you can make the classroom more engaging and more suited for deep learning. And I'm going to showcase a few examples in Mentimeter specifically, because that's of course my area of work, and I'm definitely going to show you a few examples that I've seen. So a few different kind of practical ways to enable deeper learning is to first and foremost analyze and discuss concepts. I'm sure this is already happening in many different ways, but asking questions that don't have a definitive answer. And this may be harder than you think to design for certain educators. So with Mentimeter, you can very easily allow that. So this is an example that I've seen with a specific lecture. Let me just move my mouse so you see the whole thing, which is a business question that doesn't exactly have a right answer, and that you then present as a pie chart and start discussion in the classroom. And it may look pretty simple, but the fact that the students can see on the screen what the opinions of others are, it really helps to spur the discussion. So for example, if a student has a minority opinion, they may not always feel comfortable voicing that out. But if they see it on the screen, they may be able to talk about it as if someone else had put it, and then voice their opinion that way. Or if they thought that they were alone in a specific opinion, now they see that they are not, so they feel more safe in that way. So it really can be a great help in starting that conversation. And if you want to, you can definitely answer this one, but this is more to showcase. So I don't expect you to answer this one specifically today. But I've seen that being used very, very effectively to really create that discussion and help the educator in the room, so they don't have to start from scratch and just ask someone in the audience, which can feel a little bit daunting.
Sorry, just one question.
Yes?
If you can go back to
Yes, of course.
So here, the next thing that will happen in the classroom would be what? To open a discussion and to say, okay, who supports this idea? Can you explain a little bit more of that? And then you start.
Exactly, that can be one way. What I have seen is basically that you can open the floor if anyone wants to comment on something, or you can ask someone in the audience, what do you think? Why do you think the majority thinks like this? So it becomes a little bit safer than being like, you, what do you think? But more talking about, why do you think we think like this as a group? So it doesn't feel like they become zoned out in the same way. But of course, trying to open up the floor first and foremost is ideal. But then I've seen that being used as well. You're very welcome. Great question. Another thing is to use real-world examples. I saw that popping up also when I asked about designing learning experience before, but to provide space for students to apply their concepts to authentic situations. And here we have our open-ended question type, which is used very effectively for this. Again, you don't need to answer this one if you don't want to. It's more to showcase. So you've seen that one before when I've asked you for your different opinions. And this one is really effective in the way that you can have Mentimeter help you to summarize all of the output and input to start conversation as well. Because once you get a lot of answers in, it's easier for you to have it summarized and work on it from that way. So this one is quite effective. If you've had the students read a case study, they can even submit the input before they come to class. So when you come to class, you already have input in the Mentimeter ready for you once you get there. So it becomes also easier to prepare for the educator and prepare for having a more engaging and deeper learning experience. And then finally, peer instruction. So you can pose a question on a specific topic, then you can ask the student to discuss with their peer next to them, and then come back and vote on the same question. And usually you will see that there's a shift in the answers because they've discussed and shared idea with someone next to them. And again, I'm sure this is happening already now, but it becomes very visual when you have it, and you can see how it changes through Mentimeter. So here I have a visual example, because I didn't want to go in and show it in real time this time. But here is a question, and you can see through session 1 and session 2 how the answers have shifted depending on them having talked to the person next to them. So this one is really easy to look at afterwards and see how things have changed. And it also becomes very visual for the students as well. Because of course, sometimes it's not only for the educator to know what the students needs, it's also for the student to know what they need to do in order to be successful. So that's also where the visuality of it comes into play. And AI can really support Mentimeter question creation for deep learning. So we have worked together with a person at the BI Norwegian Business School who has put this guy together. Örjan Flykt is his name. So he has put together prompts actually for the educators at his university that helps to create deep learning questions in Mentimeter. So for example, he has put this kind of template out to the educators, and then what they need to do is fill in their course title, their sub-theme, and their description, and then basically it gives them Mentimeter questions that are designed for deep learning. So a really neat way to kind of tap into technology and have it help you to create more deep learning and engaging experiences. And this can be used, of course, in any LLM, so large language model like ChatGPT or Claude or anyone really. But it's a very effective way to kind of tap into that time perspective and confidence and tools. You give them all at once, basically, or tap into the technology to help them. So, Mentimeter and AI can support deep learning by encouraging participation and reflection through well-crafted questions. And that was it for me today. Thank you. And I have a little Q&A now. If anyone has any questions, feel free to voice them out loud or put them into Mentimeter. And let's get into some questions. So the first one, is deep learning the only use case possible with Mentimeter, or are there other common ones that you see? Yes, we see formative assessment as common use cases, also gathering feedback from students, because of course gathering feedback is usually done at the end of a course, but it's sometimes hard to get the information throughout the course, and that's where Mentimeter can be really effective, to gather that information and feedback before the students are moving on to another class. We see that commonly. Of course, also to amplify the voice of the students, their opinions, and again, formative assessment to kind of check on their learning throughout before they come to the formative, the summative assessment, so exams and hand-ins and so forth. We see that too. Just a few examples of different use cases. Do we have any other questions in the room? Oh, yes, please feel free.
No, it's great. Thank you for the presentation. How do you use the Mentimeter? Not only like using it as an icebreaker at the beginning of the session, but really conduct the whole session using the Mentimeter. But I was wondering, maybe some students in the typical MBA classroom would like to express themselves by voice and not necessarily by just typing, and maybe there's a little bit of reduction in the time that they can discuss inside the classroom. But on the other hand, I understand that it guides the discussion better and these kind of things, but sometimes I think it can reduce the effective time for discussion inside the classroom. So just a general.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I think Mentimeter is in a way to remove those discussions. I think it's always about what's the purpose of what you're doing, and it's more of a helping tool for educators to start those. So I think in certain settings it's very useful to have that and kind of create that psychological safety. We actually use Mentimeter internally all the time for gathering input for leaders in their teams, for example. But sometimes it's good to also put it on the side and have that conversation and create that. But you can definitely have different use cases for it at different times. So I think it's a great complement to doing those things for sure.
I would like to raise a question, which is actually two. The first one is, are there studies that compare the, you could have a control group, and you could have one using these kind of tools and see the difference of learning.
Yes,
I don't
we
know
do.
if there are some studies of that. And the second, I think the goal is not only deep learning, but also deep fun and
Yeah.
concentration. For
Yeah.
instance, attention span would be an interesting thing to measure, because I think these tools can really help very much in that.
Very good point. Thank you for that. And yes, we do have studies. Come by our booth 22, and we can give you the insight into those, because we do have. There's actually a lot of our customers that have conducted studies on Mentimeter, so I can definitely give you that. And anyone that's interested, feel free to drop by our booth and talk to us. Booth 22. I think there was a question here also.
The sense that I got was that it is about the process in the classroom, some of which is now through the AI tool online, so that it enhances the feedback loop, makes it faster, and more people are seeing that feedback loop in real time,
Correct.
which is great. I think it's a fantastic achievement in and of itself. But I would also ask whether there is a provision in this tool that allows, for example, you mentioned international trade and comparative advantage, which allows the educator to look at the particular content of their subject matter area and to be able to actually construct better summaries or better interactiveness on the content itself. So you have subject-wise sub-tools or modules in your toolkit just to do that.
So the question is if you can take already made content and apply AI to that to get yes. Working on that, we have an AI feature now that you can type in the purpose of your session, for example, and get a draft out in Mentimeter. And we're also working to amplifying that in the future as well. But not
Which areas?
uh, whichever you want. You type in whatever purpose you have, and then you get the draft out. So it's based on AI and means that you can type in whichever area you want, really.
What is
But
your
yeah,
backend database?
we can. Do you want to come by our booth later? We can talk more in detail. So I would love to speak more about it, but I think we need to wrap up now.